These days, a lot of us hauling families around are trying to shed the minivan look, and Mazda's answer to this problem is the CX-9, their three-row crossover. Now, after 2023, this is going to be gone, replaced by the CX-90. Let's go ahead and see if this one is worth it. Talk about features, options, how the space works out, and child seat fit. Tell you what this thing has been like to live with overall for the last week. Let's go ahead and take a look. Looking at this thing from the outside, it's a big, long, heavy minivan fighter. Styling aside, it does look interesting styling wise, but it still doesn't look like it's particularly fun. But Mazda does like to inject fun into their cars, and this one really surprised me in just how much I've enjoyed driving it around. Now, part of that is that it has the 2.5 liter turbocharged engine, and that is the only way that you can get this car. There is no naturally aspirated four-cylinder in this one. There is only the turbocharged version, which means 227 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque. Unless you want to run premium, then you can extract a little bit more, 250 horsepower, 320 pound-feet of torque. But either way, it moves pretty nicely for something that's 4,400 pounds. It does not feel underpowered at all. Maybe a smidge of turbo lag because it does have that turbocharged engine. I've been impressed with the responsiveness of the throttle pedal and just how well it can move. It really does move a lot quicker than I would have expected it to. And that's only in the regular mode. You also have a sport mode, which will make the gas pedal respond even quicker, make your steering maybe a smidge heavier. But even in the normal mode, this steering actually is a little bit on the heavier side too, which I like. A lot of automakers now are making the steering just this like super video game light steering. It's just completely disconnected. Mazda does not do that. It actually makes you feel a little bit more engaged, like you're actually doing something, and it's very responsive as well. Now, that engine I mentioned is mated to a 6-speed automatic transmission, which is the one that Mazda uses in everything right now. Now, for the most part, I've had no issues with its decisions in terms of shifting. It's quick, it's fine, no real issues. The only thing that would be nice is if it had a few more gears for efficiency. Because this thing is rated at 20 city, 26 highway, and I'm averaging about 21 and a half, a mix of city and highway. Not particularly trying for efficiency, but still not wonderful. But when you're talking about something of this size, I guess not particularly unexpected. And all-wheel drive is standard on the Mazda CX-9, which is a front-biased system, but it will basically monitor all of the inputs all around the driver inputs, the wheels, everything that's going on, and it'll add in the back wheels as needed. It's a good all-wheel drive system. I have not had any particular issues with it in the rain, in the cold, anything like that. Some other things that are standard are the suite of safety features. We've got blind spot monitoring, we've got rear cross traffic alert, got the pre-collision warning, radar, cruise, with stop and go, so it'll go all the way down to 0 miles an hour and deal with your stop and go traffic as well, and that is across the board in any trim level. As far as the lane keep assist and the lane departure warning, those are where Mazda starts to get a little bit iffy, a little bit more intrusive than some of the other automakers out there. If you want to turn off that lane keep, that's the one that really starts to get a little bit annoying. That one you have to go through the infotainment to turn that off, but there is a way to turn it off, which is nice because it is a little bit on the intrusive side. I have noticed that it's not as bad as like when I was in the Mazda 3. I feel like that one was a little bit worse. The latest round of the CX-50, the CX-5, I didn't quite have those issues with, and this one here, it's not quite as intrusive. And I mentioned that stop and go traffic. You also have an auto hold feature, which if it's stuck in traffic and you're not using that radar cruise with the stop and go, you can put that on and then you can take your foot off the brake pedal and it'll just hold you in place, and you hit the gas, go to the next light, let go without having to have your foot on the brake. That will also get brake lights on, It's a very helpful feature, and that is standard as well. This one has the heads-up display, which is only in the upper trim levels, and Mazda's heads-up display is sort of in the middle of the road compared to all the different heads-up displays out there. There's some that just are not super great, like the Toyota one is not my favorite. There are some that are just way too cluttered, like Mercedes has a very cluttered system. This one is sort of somewhere in the middle. It's very clear, doesn't have too much information, it's just enough. Your speed limit, it'll tell you if you're going out of your lane, the lane departure that I mentioned before. It'll do your adaptive cruise, it'll show that up there. And if you have the traffic sign recognition, because you're in one of the upper trims, it'll show you your speed limit, it'll show you any signs that are coming up, and you can adjust the positioning of that as well. But it's not super cluttered, it's a little bit compact, but it's very clear, and there's just enough information. It's one of those things that's a convenience feature. I can easily live without it, but it's nice that it's there. I wouldn't pay, $1,000 for it or anything like that. But since Mazda doesn't do a la carte, you have to buy stuff based on the trim level. So if you're thinking of upgrading just for the heads-up display, I wouldn't necessarily do that. But if you want all of the features, all encompassing, then that's definitely a consideration. It's fairly quiet in here. It's about what you would expect for the price point. This isn't anything groundbreaking in terms of noise. I can have a conversation easily, but it's not like it's a sanctuary or anything like that. Now, for the ride quality, I would say that it is above the price point in terms of that. It rides really nicely, especially for something so big. I expect it to be really super bouncy, not particularly comfortable. You do feel stuff as you're going over it. You're not getting this like $100,000 experience, but for this price point, I feel like the ride quality is actually pretty good. And of course, it's not going to corner on rails or anything like that, but it does handle pretty well for something so big as well. A little bit of body roll as expected for something so long, but having that long wheelbase does help keep you pretty planted. Of course, the first thing you're going to notice about this car is the beautiful paint color. This is Soul Red Crystal Metallic, one of the best colors in cars right now. And I've said that before, I will say it again. This is the way I would get my Mazda, no matter what Mazda I get. And if you're in the signature trim, you've got black, white, gray, or red. So red is the way to go. You can get that polymetal gray if you get the carbon edition. Otherwise, there's a blue, there's a silver as well, but this one is my favorite by far. On the side here, we're kind of looking at a stretched out CX-5, about 200 inches overall, 115-inch wheelbase, nice and long. It's got nice clean lines, very rounded edges. I like the chrome accents here, the silver accents, as well as the black here. Gotta have the black cladding because that's in these days, I guess, but it's not quite as in your face as like the Subaru stuff. But sitting on 20-inch wheels here, nice premium wheels. Those are going to be 18s if you're in the touring. That's the base trim level, wrapped in all seasons either way though. Heated with integrated turn signals in these mirrors, and they fold with the keyless lock and unlock here in this top spec here. If you are in the carbon edition, those would not be body colored, those would be black. At the silver roof rails, as well as the moonroof up top in the upper trim levels. Like more chrome accents around the edges here. Nice looking side here, clean lines, smooth rounded edges. Got a few different front end designs depending on what trim level you're in. This one here, the signature, is going to have its own specific to this trim level, and we've got nice chrome accents around the edges here as well. Fog lights down here. You've got the sensors and the camera up here because this one does have that full 360 camera, as well as all those parking sensors. LED lights, these are adaptive in the upper trims, but they're going to be LEDs no matter what. This Mazda logo seems like it's grown quite a bit, but nice looking front end, kind of got a classy look to it overall. In the back end here, continuing with the chrome and black to set off the red even more. Really love the look of this back end. They're all going to have the all-wheel drive badge, but since this is the signature trim, it gets that one as well. And of course, there are all these Skyactiv G motor as well. Parking sensors, more of those around. This one actually has bigger exhaust tips than the rest of this model. LED tails back here as well. And every CX-9 does get the power liftgate right here on the little dinky key, because Mazda needs to get on that key game. Not too much weight to it, but that opens up into, we're looking at hatchback territory back here. Not a ton of space, but you do get some little hooks on the sides, and you've got your spare underneath, as well as a little bit of extra space under here if you want to drop that floor down a little bit. And these fold down for a 50-50 split. And a grab handle here too, that's a nice touch. But it is power to close, so you don't need that anyway. Back all the way in the back seats here, I fit okay at 5'7". Got some USB ports over here, that's nice. Cup holders, a little bit of a hook over here. These seats, there are only 2 seats back here. It is not 3 across, just 2 across, so it is a little bit on the tight side for sure. So I fit okay at 5'7". I would probably fit okay there as well with the seats in this configuration, but it is pretty claustrophobic. And if you're on the taller side, it's going to be a problem. Most of the time, you're probably going to have kids back here, though. But a note, if you do have kids in car seats, there is an anchor on the back of this chair, on the back of both of these chairs back here, but there are no latches down below, so you got to use the seatbelt, which means if you've got a high back booster like I have, and you're trying to strap in with the seatbelt, then you don't have a seatbelt for the kid, so it's going to be a bit of a problem. So I can't really put my high back booster back here, which my daughter was kind of disappointed about. And if you have a rear facing seat, it's going to definitely be on the tight side, so you'll probably have those up there anyway. But something to note. Oh, this is a pain. So again, with the seat set big enough for somebody to be back there, I still fit okay. Again, 5'7", or the seat set up here, some pockets here. I can also go way back with the manual adjustment, and it'd be more than fine if you want to crush the feet of the people behind you. Like that, we've got a little bit of something other than gloss black here. Nice hefty door handles. Is some gloss black all around here, though not my favorite. Note that this one here, the signature trim, has the center console with the captain's chairs. Depending on what trim level you get, what option you choose, you can actually get a bench seat with 3 across, or you can get a center walkway, which would be really helpful. But with this signature trim and the center console, it means that I've got cup holders here. I've got heated seat buttons right here, which is nice. You got the heated seats in this one, and you got a little bit of storage space and a couple of extra USBs. We've also got our own zone for climate here and our own controls right there. Very helpful, very nice feature, and plenty of headroom. All right, up in the front seats here, this one has Napa leather because it's a signature trim. You get this deep chestnut. It's like a dark brown, but you can also get it in white, which I hate white interiors, so I'm glad that this one has the deep chestnut. You can also get a red leather if you go for the carbon edition. I always love that red leather option. Or if you're in one of the other trim levels, it's either a black or a white leatherette or a cloth in the base. And these are power adjustable, heated and ventilated, bolstered really nicely. Very comfortable seats, no issues with this. Got the typical sort of Mazda thin steering wheel, leather wrapped, with all your easy to use, well laid out buttons here and the paddles. Got your parking sensors, parking cameras, lane keep assist stuff off to the side here, the buttons for that. A little bit of wood trim all around. That's only in the signature trim level. A little bit of gloss black, more than I would have liked to see. It's nice with the little silver trim around it, but still I hate the gloss black because it's all dusty and fingerprinty even after a week. At least we got a little bit of texture through here and here, visual texture. It's not actually physical texture. but that looks nice, and that's definitely better than the gloss black choice. Nice solid handles here as well. Leather wrap shift knob. We got the infotainment with the knob and the buttons here. Every time I use this, I get a little bit more used to it, but there's still a few things like Android Auto is still kind of cumbersome using the knob, and there are a few things like when you have to type something out, but at least it does have voice control, so that helps quite a bit. And this is a 10.25 inch screen. That is the standard screen. If it was a touchscreen, you know, it would be a little bit far back, but this one does not seem to be a touchscreen even when you're at a stop, like some of the other cars from Mazda are a touchscreen when you're stopped, and then when you start moving, then you can only use the knob. But this one, it seems like even when you're stopped, you're stuck with the knob. Your 360 camera is in there, as well as your parking sensors. You can even set it up. This one is set up so that when you turn the car on, the front cameras are on, as well as the top view. Kind of a nice feature. You don't have to have that, so you can have it just go to the regular menu if you want, or set it to one of the other cameras, but kind of a nice feature when you're in a parking lot or something. The HVAC controls are all physical buttons, easily, you know, nicely laid out, and tell you your temperature and your fan speed right there. You don't have to look in the infotainment for that, which is nice. All the information is right there. Your heated steering wheel, heated seats, ventilated seats, all your HVAC is right there. Now, when the car is in park, it's a little bit tough to get to. You got to reach around the knob, but when you're driving around, it's nice and easy to use. And even though we have wireless charging down here, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay are wired, and there are no USBs up here, which means that this space is kind of getting wasted, at least for me this week, because I've got my phone plugged in over here. The USBs in this console, a little bit of extra space, a couple of USB ports, but it means that my phone is now stuck in a cup holder because I want to use the Android Auto feature. Not the end of the world, but a little bit annoying that I can't stick it up there even to plug it in to a USB up there. Sunglasses holder, nice to have. Moonroof, little tiny moonroof. Wish it was like the pano, like all the way back. Would be nice for the kids to get a little bit of sun, but right now it is just for the front passengers. And then up here in the gauge cluster, I like how Mazda does the simple like analog gauges across, and even the middle one, even though it's digital, they make it to look like it's analog. And this one is actually a little bit bigger in this trim. You'll get a 4.6 inch in the lower trims, 7 inch in the upper trims. Get a little bit of information you can cycle through in there in the middle if you don't want it to just be the analog gauge, but not too many choices there. You know, you got your trip odometer, you got some of your safety features you can show in there, and it'll show you your current speed limit, the traffic signs, if you have that option as well. But I wish there was a little bit more information in that rotating screen that you could choose from. Not the end of the world there. We got the 12 speaker Bose sound system, because this is one of the upper trims, and this one has the heads-up display, the active driving display in Mazda speak. So overall, I would say that this car has exceeded my expectations, especially when it comes to the driving experience. You know, like I said, I just kind of expected big and boring and slow, if I'm being completely honest, but it doesn't feel underpowered at all. In fact, it feels pretty peppy, and you still get the great steering with a little bit of weight to it and a little bit of feedback. Definitely is actually interesting to drive, and you've got the nice interiors that sort of punch above the price point, though those price points are starting to shift upward more and more, and the CX-90 is going to push that price even more, and you do lose out on some space. This is not really going to fight a minivan if you really need all the space. It's also not going to fight some of these bigger crossovers that really have both a usable backseat and a usable cargo area. If you're filling up the car with people and stuff, it's gonna be pretty tight. But if it's mostly just people, or if you have the ability to drop down one or two of those back seats, then you'll have you do have that versatility. But if you really need all that space, then you're gonna want something a little bit bigger. But if you're just talking about dropping all the kids off at school and going to work, it should be plenty fine. Taking the kids to hockey practice when you've got 6 or 7 kids and all their hockey gear, that one's going to be a little bit tougher. So at the end of the day, we have Mazda kind of doing what Mazda does well, which is maintaining fun. Even if it's not the zoom, it's still enjoyable. If I had to have a third row, then this would definitely be a consideration. Thank you for watching as always, and please again make sure to hit the like button, do all the YouTube things, tell your friends, hit the share, hit all the buttons, and hopefully I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.